We have all scrolled past them, the loud, impeccably dressed internet gurus who claim to hold the exact formulas for wealth, health, and happiness. They speak with absolute certainty, selling confident answers to questions they barely understand. Ancient Athens faced its own version of this. They were called the Sophists. These were elite tutors who traveled from city to city, charging hefty fees to teach young men how to argue and win. They were entirely satisfied with their own intellect and projected an aura of complete, unquestionable mastery. Before this era, Greek thinkers focused almost entirely on the physical world, studying the stars and the elements. But here, in the bustling streets of Athens, the focus shifted inward. The mystery was no longer the cosmos, it was human beings and their place in society. And standing right in the middle of those streets was a man who fit no conventional mold. Socrates was, by all historical accounts, an unattractive man, short, stout, with bulging eyes and a flat nose, but he carried an undeniable internal magnetism. Instead of studying the trees outside the city walls, he spent his days in the marketplace, interrogating the human soul. Surrounded by elites who claimed to know everything, Socrates took a completely opposite stance. He famously declared, "I know one thing well, and that is that I know nothing." To Socrates, a true philosopher is troubled by their own ignorance. Realizing that your understanding is microscopic compared to the vastness of the universe is not a failure of intellect, it is the necessary starting line. You cannot discover the truth until you drop the false confidence and admit you do not already possess it. When Socrates engaged someone in debate, he refused to lecture them. Instead, he played the fool. He would approach a proud expert as a humble, ignorant listener, asking simple, seemingly innocent questions as if he genuinely wanted to be educated. Then, with a series of gentle nudges, he would steer the conversation. He let the other person do all the talking, guiding them until their own logic collapsed in on itself. The arrogant debater would suddenly see the glaring contradictions in their own beliefs, usually in front of a laughing crowd. Socrates likened his philosophical work to his mother's profession. She was a midwife. A midwife doesn't create the baby herself. She assists the mother who brings forth life from her own body. Socrates believed he was doing the exact same thing with human reason. He couldn't force a correct thought into your head. He could only help you pull the truth out of your own mind. We experience this whenever a teacher or parent tries to force-feed us information. We subconsciously put up a mental wall and block it out. Learning only happens when we actively agree to participate in the process. External voices can guide the way, but true awareness has to be generated entirely from within. Socrates applied this internal focus to everything, exposing how many of our deeply held feelings are actually arbitrary cultural constructs. Take the feeling of shame regarding nudity. If that embarrassment were an innate human truth, every culture would treat it the exact same way. Yet being uncovered is totally normal in some parts of the world and highly taboo in others. The feeling doesn't come from nature. It is programmed by the local customs of society. To shake his fellow citizens out of this cultural programming, Socrates described Athens as a large, sluggish horse that had fallen asleep. He saw his role as the annoying gadfly sent to sting the horse and wake it from its slumber. Waking people up is rarely a popular job. By cornering politicians and men of authority in public squares, his relentless questioning exposed their incompetence and deeply humiliated the ruling elites. He took these risks because he was guided by an internal divine voice, a moral conscience. When the state ordered him to participate in unjust acts, like issuing death sentences against political protesters, he bluntly refused. He prioritized the truth over political obedience. In the Socratic worldview, the laws, traditions, and expectations of a society do not define good and evil. The ultimate authority is human reason. If you want to know what is right, you have to bypass the crowd and consult your own rigorous internal logic. This leads to perhaps his most puzzling claim: whoever knows what the right thing is will not commit a wrong act. On the surface, that sounds absurd. People knowingly do bad things all the time. To understand his logic, we have to look at his view of human motivation. Socrates observed that the core drive of every human being is to seek personal happiness and avoid misery. No one wakes up plotting to make their own life worse. When we lie, steal, or hurt others while knowing it is morally wrong, we create a deep psychological conflict. Acting contrary to our own rational conscience wrecks us internally. We feel miserable. Because no human actively seeks to be miserable, we will eventually be forced to stop behaving in ways that cause us internal pain. Therefore, if someone continuously commits evil, they are acting out of a profound ignorance of what actually causes happiness. They are confusing short-term gain with long-term peace. If Socrates is right, immorality isn't a problem of discipline, it is a problem of education. Living a good life requires investing in our ability to critically think and clearly define what is truly good for the soul. The ruling class of Athens tired of his relentless questioning. In 399 BC, they accused him of corrupting the youth and sentenced him to death. He could have saved his own life by pleading for mercy and promising to stay quiet. He refused. He valued his conscience more than his survival. Historians often note the striking similarities between Socrates and Jesus Christ. Both were enigmatic figures who never wrote a single book. Both challenged corrupt power structures, believed they were guided by a divine mission, and bravely welcomed execution rather than abandon their truth. In fact, our entire understanding of Socrates survives purely through his followers. His student, Plato, who became one of the greatest philosophers in history himself, cast his mentor as the main character in his written dialogues. Distinguishing where Socrates' thoughts end and Plato's begin is nearly impossible, but the image Plato crafted was cemented forever. That Socratic image has inspired thinkers for 2.5 millennia. He taught us that a meaningful life is not built by memorizing facts dictated from the outside. It is built by fiercely questioning our own assumptions, admitting what we do not know, and working until our actions align perfectly with our inner reason. Thanks for staying until the end. It truly means a lot. If this video spoke to you, like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's ahead. This is a space for philosophy, psychology, and science to expand the way you see life. Until next time, may wisdom walk beside you.